Alright, so steering stops. What are they, and do we really need them? Now obviously, we have changed the intent of our off-road lawnmowers quite a bit by adding bigger tires, locking the rear ends, bigger motors, and more speed. The front ends on these tractors are not made to take the abuse that we intend to put them through. And one of the most popular questions I get oftentimes is, how do I make my steering stronger? Though there are a few ways to make your steering stronger, what I'm going to focus on today is how to avoid breaking your steering in the first place. Now a lot of the times when we're off-roading through mud, rocks, stumps, swamps, and everything that you're not supposed to drive a lawnmower through, we're hitting all kinds of uneven terrain, and a lot of times that's putting a lot of pressure on the front end. The kinds of pressure that weren't originally intended by the manufacturers of these riding lawnmowers. So a very simple object like a steering limiter or a steering stop can go a long way in protecting the front end on your tractor. As you can see here on the Sears, there's a small bolt welded to the frame of the steering support, and when you turn the spindles all the way to the one direction, they're actually stopped by hitting that bolt. And what this effectively does is takes all the pressure off of the tie rods if the steering reaches a full lock position. So I can demonstrate some of those undesirable forces here underneath the Murray. As you can see, I've actually got two tie rods, which is different than most lawnmower setups, but I can still use it to demonstrate how the pressures of off-roading will change the geometry of your steering in an undesirable way. As you can see, when I turn the wheel all the way in and push on it, I can actually flex this whole tie rod in a way that's really not good. And when I spin it out and pull on it really hard, I can almost kind of straighten the tie rod. So basically what that tells you is that all that off-roading force is being transferred through this tie rod down into your steering gear. So if your tie rods don't bend, then you're probably going to break off a steering gear. So the answer here to resolve this whole issue is to put some steering stops in up above. And I'm sure a lot of you are starting to notice the adjustable tie rod ends I recently added here to the Murray off-road lawnmower, and all that basically entailed was chopping one of these ATV tie rods in half and using one end on each tie rod end on my lawnmower. And I cleaved off the original tie rods. This is what they looked like. Took the tie rod ends from the four-wheeler and welded them to my original tie rods, and then welded tube steel across that on both sides. So there's 3 welds in here, and should be pretty sturdy. Only time will tell. We'll find out very soon though. Now as you can see, the factory actually did a pretty good job of trying to put in some steering stops, but these ones simply allow for entirely too much articulation of the spindle, which I particularly don't like. You could go about solving this a couple of different ways. You could either weld on a piece of steel to the outside of this to extend it a little bit more so it hits this front end a little bit sooner. You could also make an adjustable set by simply drilling a hole right in the center where this thing comes close to hitting and welding a nut centered over that hole, and then you would be allowed to then screw a bolt in to the nut, and the bolt would penetrate through the hole into the frame of the chassis, and you could essentially adjust your steering bump stops. So this is right about where I want my steering to max out. And you can see right between my steering stop and the front part of the frame of my tractor, there's really not that much room. So unfortunately, I do not think I can do the adjustable steering stop thing. So my solution is to actually feed in a very large bolt in between the chassis and this original steering stop. I'm going to weld that sucker into place. And what that's going to do is that's going to prevent this steering spindle from being able to push in any more, and therefore put any more pressure on this tie rod, causing it to bend and bow out. So fortunately for me, this modification is going to be quite easy. Since all I'm going to be doing is welding on some little steering stops, all I really have to do is just grind down the existing metal, place my bolts so they're centered behind the spindle steering stop, and then weld the suckers into place. Once I get that all taken care of, I can wire brush the whole thing down, clean it up, paint it up, make it look nice, and voila! We have got some steering stops. And now you will notice when I spin my wheel to the all the way inward position, I can no longer bend the tie rod like I could before. Spinning it the other direction, I can still pull on the tie rod, but I'm not really worried about that because, like I said before, it would take a lot more force to straighten the tie rod than it would be to actually physically bend it in half. As you can see, I only spent a few minutes putting those on, including grinding them down, painting them, waiting for them to cool off and everything after welding them. So there's really no excuses to not have them on your tractor. Just get out there and weld something on there. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to work. And this will save your steering gears and all your tie rods and things like that. So you'll thank me in the future when you're not trying to bend things straight and try to weld teeth on and grind them again. Yeah, I've tried that too. It doesn't work. Trust me. So that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about the adjustable steering on the Murray. I kind of like the idea of being able to adjust my toe and things of that nature, so that'll be pretty sweet. But get your rigs ready for the spring, boys, because mud season's coming, and that means romp time. So I want to see some videos of you guys putting those things through hell, and I will certainly return the favor. So let me know what you guys think. Please rate, comment below, subscribe to the Fearless Front channel if you haven't already, and well, hang on, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. See you in the next video.